LoneAzn here, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about cards that you would want to go get if you are new to the trading card game and are serious about being competitive in the Pokemon TCG. Now, most of these cards you're not going to run in every deck, but you're going to run them in most decks, and it'll overall make deck building a whole lot simpler and a lot easier if you have these cards in your collection. These are also what is known as staples in Pokemon. So I'm just going to go through the cards and how many of these cards I think you should be looking to get for your collection if you're serious about playing the game competitively. So first off on the list we have Dive Ball. Now Dive Ball is a great card. It lets you search your deck for any water Pokemon and add it to your hand. This is a card you have to play 4 of if you are playing a water deck. I do not see a reason if you're playing a pure water deck to not run 4 Dive Balls. It lets you search for anything and put it into your hand. It's an amazing card. If you're planning on playing a water deck, pick up 4 of these. They're relatively cheap. I believe they're about 25 cents a copy now on TCG Player. And by the way, guys, most of these prices I'm listing off are just off the top of my head from when I last checked them. So remember that card prices always fluctuate depending upon how readily available they are and how much sought after they are, or aka supply and demand. Next thing is Escape Rope. Now, Escape Rope and Switch are both similar cards. Escape Rope makes you switch and your opponent switch, but your opponent gets to switch first. And Switch just lets you switch. It all depends upon your playstyle and which is better in your opinion. For example, I like to play Switch more than Escape Rope, but I do see the appeal in Escape Rope. This card's readily available, pretty cheap. It's probably under $1, but great card. Next thing is Level Ball. Now, Level Ball lets you search for any Pokemon less than 90 HP and add it to your hand. This is great for any deck running evolution lines like Stage 1. Sorry, not Stage 1. A Basic, a Stage 1, and a Stage 2. Because most times that Basic and that Stage 1 will both have less than 90 HP. Lets you evolve a lot faster and get your evolutions going if you're not playing Rare Candy. Which, if you're playing any deck with Stage 2s, you probably should be playing Rare Candy. So that's Level Ball. Going on, we have Max Elixir. Now, if you're Max Elixir is kind of a tricky card. I've seen players run anywhere from 2 to 4 depending on what kind of deck they're playing. But I would say get at least 3 for your collection. The 4th one should be easy to get. Although this card is kind of pricey for uncommon. Last time I checked, it was about $6 a copy. But it's definitely worth it. It's a great card. It lets you look at top 6 cards of your deck and attach a basic energy card you find there to a basic Pokemon on your bench. So if you're playing any deck that plays a lot of EXs or basic Pokemon that have high energy costs, or that you want to get your bench charged up quickly in case one of your active gets knocked out, this is a great card. I've seen it used in Volcanion decks. I've seen it used in Gardevoir decks. What else have I seen this card used? I've seen this card used in so many decks. Another popular one is Mewtwo, Darkrai, Yveltal EX. A lot of EX decks will run at least 2 copies of Max Elixir, sometimes 3, and most Mega decks will run 2 or 3, with the other 1 to 2 being Mega Turbo, which is the next card we're going to talk about. So the next card is Mega Turbo. This card's pretty cheap too. I think it's under $1. Most decks will run at least 2. If you're playing a Mega deck, you're going to want to run at least 2 of these in your deck. It lets you attach a basic energy card from your disc brought to your Mega Evolution Pokemon. Doesn't have to be active, doesn't have to be benched, it's any Mega that you have out. It's great for accelerating energy onto your Megas that might have high energy costs. Or you just need more than 1 energy attachment, such as Mega Gardevoir, you need 2 energy attachments, so you attach for your turn. In Mega Turbo, your Gardevoir is locked and loaded. Next card is Special Charge. Last time I checked this card, it was pretty cheap. I think it was like under 50 cents. But Special Charge lets you shuffle 2 special energy cards from your discard pile to your deck. You're going to want to play this if you're playing any deck that relies on DCEs, or strong energy, or splash energy to keep yourself rolling. If you're playing a deck with purely just DCEs, you're usually going to want to play at least 1 of these. Some decks do play 2. I personally find if I'm only running 4 DCEs in my deck, I don't need to run 1, because if 4 Pokemon get knocked out, that means that there's only going to be 2 left that gonna need energy attachments, so having only 2 special energy shuffled back into my deck is fine. I can see the appeal of running 2 in case you're playing as a huge energy denial meta, but Special Charge, definitely going to want at least one copies of these in your collection. Next card we're going to talk about is Super Rod. I cannot think of a single deck that does not run at least one copy of Super Rod, and here's why. It is probably one of the single best recovery options that you have in the game. It lets you shuffle in 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards from your discard pile back into your deck. So any Pokemon in your discard pile, go back into your deck. And basic energy, back into your deck. It's probably the single most universal and versatile recovery tool that is currently available in the game. You're going to want at least one copy. I've seen some decks run 2. It's a great card. Next card that we're going to talk about now is Trainer's Mail. Now this card is kind of interesting. It used to be a mandatory 4 of in every deck. A lot of decks are dropping down to 2 or 3 just because of how much draw support is in this game, that people are starting to realize they don't really need 4 Trainer's Mails. But Trainer's Mail, though, lets you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, and you may add if of those 4 cards, you may add 1 trainer card that you find there into your hand, except for Trainer's Mail, which I don't understand why. I guess they don't want you to just Trainer's Mail, just thin out your deck. But this is great if you're looking for that. If you don't draw a supporter for the turn, Trainer's Mail, grab a supporter that you find out of there, or a VS Seeker, and pull one out of the discard pile. Be great for that clutch Ultra Ball or the clutch Max Elixir or anything that you are looking for specifically for that turn. Trainer's Mail is a card you're gonna want to play. I say get a playset because, like I said, it used to be a 4 of. Some people are now dropping down to 3 or 2. It just depends on your playstyle and what kind of deck you're playing. But definitely getting a 4 of those is definitely great. This is another one of those uncommons that's kind of expensive. I've seen it drop recently down to $4, but it used to be $6 a copy. Next thing we're going to talk about is Ultra Ball. This is almost always 90% of the time going to be a 4 of in your deck. You discard 2 cards from your hand, and you search for a Pokemon and reveal it and put it into your hand. It's any Pokemon in your deck. So what most people with this card would do nowadays is they'll play Ultra Ball turn 1, grab a Hoopa EX, and just start going off and drawing and playing and drawing and playing. You're going to want to play 4 of these because it's the ultimate search card in the game. Definitely a 4 of in every deck. This card's pretty cheap. Pretty sure it's under a quarter. If you have a theme deck, you probably got at least one of these in your theme deck. Alright, next card is VS Seeker. A card that I am a huge fan of. A card I hope that gets reprinted sometime before... What would that be? Before... Jeez, what says that? Before Roaring Skies rotates out. In the standard meta, I think VS Seeker is an amazing card. It's definitely 4 of in every deck. You get to take a supporter card from your discard pile and put it into your hand. This is great because you can just discard all your supporters and still be able to use them later with VS Seeker. This is great for late game if you need that Lysander that you discarded earlier, used earlier. Same thing with Sycamore or any one of supporters that you discarded earlier in the game or used earlier in the game and you need to reuse them to beat your opponent. This card, again, it's another one of the more expensive uncommons. This card, when I first started playing, was at $10. It has now dropped significantly down to 5 in the lowest rarity, which is an uncommon. Great card, definitely a 4 of in any deck. Alright, now we're kind of moving a little bit into like the tech options or cards that you're not necessarily going to play in every deck, but if it's a deck card that your deck can abuse, it's going to be a card you want to include. The first one we're talking about is actually Fisherman. This is a card I've really only seen played in Greninja decks, but it's also a card I would consider playing in Volcanion, just because Volcanion lets you discard energy from your hand frequently to steam up and attack your opponent, attack for those big numbers. Greninja uses it because they have to discard 1 energy for their abilities. So any deck that requires you to discard energy from your hand to accelerate or to attack for bigger numbers, I think Fisherman is at least a 1 of in those kind of decks. This card also is pretty cheap. I'm pretty sure it's under 50 cents. And then we have Hex Maniac. This is a really awesome card because until the end of your opponent's next turn, no Pokemon in your hand, your discard pile, or in play have abilities. This is all abilities, so it shuts off yours too. But this is great for playing against decks like Vileplume that want to lock you out of your item cards. So this is a good way you Hex Maniac, and then you get to play your item cards, and it switches to your opponent's turn. But they still get to play their item cards now. But their main objective was to lock you out of your items, so they probably would have used their items early to set up, or they just run a low item count. Hexmaniac's a great card used in any deck. You can also use it if you know your opponent's holding that Shaman in their hand. You can use Hexmaniac so they can't Shaman the next turn. You delay them, you stall them out a little bit to get yourself rolling. Really good card, at least in one of in most decks, or if actually a lot of decks don't play this card, but I think it's a good card to always consider playing with how many abilities are currently in the game. This is also a pretty cheap card, pretty sure it's under 50 cents. Next card is Lysander. This is definitely one or two of them in most decks. You may force your opponent to switch their bench Pokemon with one of their active. You get to choose what Pokemon comes out. So you can Lysander out a Shaman and knock it out, so you take 2 prizes, or lock some Pokemon with a high retreat cost into the active, forcing them to either have a switch card like a Switch or Escape Rope, or force them to attach energy and retreat it, or they're just forced to let you knock it out and take prizes. It's a great card, definitely one or two of in most decks. Again, another really cheap card, probably I think it's under a quarter again. All right, next card we're gonna talk about is N. This is a card you're definitely gonna want to play at least 2 of, if not 3 of. Wouldn't hurt to get a playset of this card though. Each player shuffles his or her hand into his or her deck. Then each player draws a card for each of his or her remaining prize cards. This is a great card to play. It's kind of a tricky card though, because you don't want to give your opponent more cards than they currently have. But at the same time, you're gonna want to draw cards. So always be careful when you play N. Late game, it can be devastating to your opponent if they're ahead. You can end them down to 1 card while you still draw 4 or 5. You know, just dump your hand, draw, and then play N, and that way you get a fresh new hand. Great card. Another cheap one, under a quarter, I would expect. Pokemon Center Lady is a card that's been seeing a lot of play lately. Usually has a 1-of. You get to heal 60 damage or remove all special conditions from one of your Pokemon. The reason why this card is great is 60 damage is actually a pretty huge number. It also screws with people's math, so that way they usually are forced to hit at least one more time on your Pokemon, giving you another turn to knock out theirs or power up something else on your bench. Also, with Sun and Moon coming out soon, removing special conditions seems like it's going to be a prevalent thing with how many cards are printing that evolve Poison or Burn. And this removes that special condition from your active Pokemon. Definitely, I would suggest making this a 1 or 2 of in your collection, just so that way if you play against a heavy Poison or Burn meta, that you can have a way to counter that. Next card, Pokemon Ranger. This is I'm cautious to put this in here simply because I don't think it's extremely relevant in Standard, because I can only think of one deck this really counters, but Expanded, this is a must run. The only reason why I was hesitant to put it is because in Standard there's not many decks that this would abuse. But Pokemon Ranger, remove all effects of attacks on each player's Pokemon. This is great against the Jolteon Glaceon deck that's been running around that stops your Pokemon from hitting back. But also it can be great for removing effects like does 20 less damage. You know, it removes effects of your opponent's attacks onto your Pokemon. I would definitely always consider keeping it at least in my binder. Not necessarily in my deck unless I know there's going to be a lot of people playing decks that have effects of attacks that affect what I can do on my turn. Next card. Sorry guys. Good old-fashioned Professor Sycamore. 90% of the decks will run 4 copies of this card in their deck, simply because it is the single most cards you can draw with 1 card in the whole entire game. You discard your hand and draw fresh 7 new cards, and this is great because with how many decks that do well with the discard pile, the Professor Sycamore is always going to be a good card as long as there's decks that function well with the discard pile. I'm talking about decks like Volcanion and Yveltal. Mega decks with Mega Turbo, Volcanion and Yveltal both let you take energy from your discard pile and attach them to your Pokemon. Also with VS Seeker, you can just discard all your supporters and use them again with VS Seeker later. There's not really a whole lot of downsides to Professor Sycamore, other than if you're stuck with a bunch of Pokemon in your hand that you need for later. But this is definitely a 4 of in most decks. Definitely get a playset. Really cheap card. Alright, next thing we're going to talk about is fighting Team Flare Grunt. Team Flare Grunt. Discard energy card attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Now the nice thing about Team Flare Grunt, it doesn't specify basic or special, so you can pick anything. So Definitely a one of, because you're going to want to have this card if you ever need to counter someone's deck. Also, it's really devastating against decks that run DCE, because most decks will only run DCE or run a low basic energy count with DCE. So, definitely really devastating to take off their DCE, because DCE they can only run 4 copies of. So, definitely Team Flare Ground's always a card to consider keeping in your binder. Next thing we're going to talk about is Fighting Fury Belt. This is great if you're running a deck with high basic count, because it gives your Pokemon an extra 40 HP and their attacks do 10 more damage. If you're playing a deck like Volcanion, I keep bringing that deck up, I don't know why. Yveltal, Darkrai, Yveltal, what else is there that runs a lot of basics off the top of my head? Seismitoad if you're playing Expanded. There's pretty much a lot of decks that any deck that runs EXs pretty much will usually use Fighting Fury Belt if it's not a Mega deck. Great card, gives you 40 extra HP and you do 10 more damage. Definitely probably gonna want to run at least 2 to 3 in your deck, or keep 2 to 3 in your binder. Relatively cheap card, I think it's about $1. Not sure. It's been a long time since I looked at that card online because I have a playset in my binder. Next card we're talking about is Floatstone. This Pokemon this card is attached to has no retreat cost. Great for keeping your Hoopa out of the active. Great for putting on cards like Zorak, where they have the stand-in ability where they can jump in and then you can retreat back into your other Pokemon that you want as your attacker. Definitely gonna want to keep at least 2 of these in your binder. I like this card. I use it a lot. I use it in pretty much every deck that I play. Another really cheap card, should be under 50 cents. Next thing we're going to talk about is Spirit Links. I just picked Gardevoir Spirit Link just because I just picked the first Spirit Link that I saw. If you're playing a Mega deck, no matter how many if you're only running 3 copies of the Mega, which most people do, they'll run 4 copies of the basic EX and 3 copies of the Mega, you want to run 4 copies of a Spirit Link in your deck for that maximum consistency, so that way you can always have that Spirit Link on your Pokemon when you evolve into the Mega, so your turn does not end. If you're playing a Mega, you want 4 copies of the Spirit Link. Next thing we're going to talk about is Energy. As far as basic energy goes, you could probably get those pretty much for free from your friends or players at your shop who have extra energy. Most people in the Pokemon community are really nice. If you don't have very many basic energies, just ask around. You could probably buy a bunch off somebody for like $1. Another option is Elite Trainer boxes. They'll come with 5 of each energy. And if you're new to the game, I always suggest Elite Trainer boxes because they're great for storage. They come with sleeves, they come with dice, and they come with packs and the energy pack. So keep that in mind, guys. I know it's a little off topic, but if you planning on playing and you're new, pick up an Elite Trainer box. Ask around your friends or people you know who play and see if they have any extra energies that they'd be willing to part with for $1, or maybe some card you have in your binder that you don't want. But the energy cards I'm going to talk about right now are DCE. You're going to want 4 of these for your binder because a lot of decks run DCE, and if you have them already, a lot easier to build your deck. DCE, again, it's a really cheap card. It should be around 50 cents for the lowest rarity, which is uncommon. It also provides 2 colorless energy to your Pokemon that you attached to. Alright, now this is kind of a controversial topic, the Pokemon. First thing we're going to talk about is Shaman EX. Now, if you're playing in Standard, you already know that card can be rotated out next rotation, because Roaring Skies was the first set that was allowed back in. It was Roaring Skies on. So Roaring Skies is definitely going to be gone next rotation. So that includes Shaman. But Shaman, if you're playing right now and you're serious about being competitive, you're going to want at least 2 copies in your binder for your deck. It's the single best draw card in the game because of the setup ability. From when you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may draw cards, so you have 6 cards in your hand. So you dump your hand, drop Shaman, draw up the 6 new cards to your hand. The attack's not bad for a single double colorless. You return it back to your hand, all cards attached to it back to your hand. Its HP is low though. For an EX, it's only 110, so if it's on your bench, your opponent's most likely just going to Lysander it out and try and knock it out and take 2 prizes. But like I said, it's a great card and lets you draw a bunch of cards. This card has recently gone down in value, but it's still really expensive in my opinion. They're running for about $40 to $45 a copy. So if you're, like I said, you really need to think about if you're really going to be competitive, because if you're going to drop $80 to $90 on 2 cards, you have to be damn near intend on being competitive at this game, or at least playing a lot of tournaments to get the most use out of this card. If you play expanded like I do, this card is a no-brainer to buy because it's going to be at least be in rotation for the year. Next card we're going to talk about is Hoopa EX. If you're playing an EX deck, you want at least one copy in your deck, possibly two. In my Mega Gardevoir deck, which I will be profiling in a couple weeks for our new series on the channel, Hoopa EXs, I'm going to be running 2 of them in my deck. The nice thing about Hoopa is when you play onto your bench, you can search your deck for up to 3 Pokemon EX except for Hoopa and put them into your hand. Now this is great for a deck like Mega Gardevoir because you Ultra Ball turn 1 for a Hoopa, play the Hoopa, you search for Gardevoir, and a Shaman, bench the Gardevoir, play whatever else you can play in your hand, play the Shaman, draw 6 new cards. You just drew through 1/6 of your deck in one turn. Are setting up extremely well. Its retreat cost is high though, with 2 retreat costs, which isn't, I guess, isn't bad, but with Floatstone you can counteract that. Its attack, let's be honest, I don't never seen anyone use the attack. It's a high energy attack cost, and you have to discard 2 energy attached to it, and its attack does 100 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. And you don't even hit weakness or resistance for bench Pokemon. Alright guys, so that's been staples for standard format that I believe you guys should go out and get if you're serious about being competitive in this game and you are new to it. Stay tuned for tomorrow. We should be doing a Pokemon Sun and Moon booster box opening. Also, in a couple weeks, I will be doing must-buy cards for Sun and Moon. I don't like doing those kind of things until I have actually seen all the cards and I have played with them and I see what potential to all the cards. Until I get a chance to play with them, I will not be making a video about Sun and Moon. So this video is just for Steam Siege and backwards. I'll also be doing more videos in expanded format, more deck profiles of decks that me or LoneAzn are playing, as well as some of our friends. Alright guys, peace, stay tuned, see you next time.